building. I want to say thanks to all of our partners, to the FBI, to the ADF, and other federal partners, to the THP, Tennessee Highway Patrol, the TBI, the District Attorney, and to the Fire Department, who all came together and seamlessly addressed this situation as quickly as possible. I've already gotten requests from the national media about a great response. We're still assessing that as well. But what I can say, and what I've said before, is that whenever I hope that we would never have this situation, that if we ever did, we would not wait. We would immediately go in and we would immediately engage the person perpetrating this horrible crime. And so that's all I can say. Right now we have David Rouse, director of the TBI, who will come after me to address his portion. And then we have others that will say something as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Again, I want to echo what Chief has said in reference to the great support and the great teamwork that has been taking place here, and as well as sending our heartfelt prayers to the families, to this community of these victims. Now, I know there'll be people who want to criticize us for prayers, but that's the way we do that in the South, right? We believe in prayer, and we believe in the power of prayer, and so our prayers go out to these families. The role of the TBI in this investigation is we have been asked by General Funk to assist in the officer-involved portion of this incident. So the incident where the officers engaged the suspect, we are assisting the Metro investigation. And the reason we've got Metro doing the primary investigation is because it was a fluid scene. So there wasn't a single stop in the action. And so as they investigate the homicides, then we felt it was most appropriate for them to continue that investigation. But we will assist as in our role as an independent oversight on the officer-involved situation. And so that will be the role of TBI. We, too, want to thank all of our partners. It is special. We've had this conversation, unfortunately, too many times in Tennessee, and that is that you wish you wouldn't have to do these types of scenes. But when you do, you want to have the working relationships that we have in our law enforcement community here in Tennessee. It is amazing. And we've all come together as one and working very tirelessly. And we'll continue to work together to address this situation. It's a horrible, senseless tragedy. And we will be here working with our partners to get through it. And next, I'd like to introduce the District Attorney General for this area, Glenn Funk.
This is the ultimate crime when school children and caregivers are the victims of senseless gun violence. Can't say anything before we first express our concerns for the victims and their families and the extended number of victims that are traumatized by today's events. I came out on the scene today because our current operating procedure is that when an officer is involved in a shooting, that the TBI comes out, and I knew that this was a unique case, and I want to make sure that everything was handled appropriately. Director Roush was out here almost at the exact same time I got here, and Chief Drake had already been on the scene for a while. The three of us met and talked about how the investigation was going to be handled. We made a joint decision affirming what the two law enforcement leaders, how they wanted to proceed, which was that Metro was going to handle the bulk of this, but the TBI would participate in a capacity to continue with making sure that we have transparency and everything, and to make sure that any backup that MNPD needs in this continued investigation would be provided. Can't not stress enough how seamlessly that worked to have a conversation and a decision to be made quickly and appropriately as far as how the case was going to be handled from here. Hats off to Chief Drake and to Director Roush. I also want to thank Chief Swan and our federal partners as well. While I cannot comment about the ongoing nature of the investigation, I'm really impressed with the work that's being done by law enforcement.
Yes, good afternoon. First, let me just say, as everyone else, what a tragic day here in Nashville. So our hearts and our prayers do go out to all the family members and also the first responders that actually made this call. As always, the fire department and Office of Emergency Management, our job is to support. And we were here at the beginning and we'll be here until the end. We just ask that everyone, again, as it was said earlier about prayer, we ask for that. And the ongoing support that's needed from our standpoint is to give support in any area that's asked for on the scene. So again, we thank you, and from this point forward, we'll just continue on with our mission and try to bring some type of closure and resolution. Thank you.
I anticipate there will be another briefing at or before 4 o'clock. We will entertain 2 or 3 questions at this moment before these gentlemen have to go back to the scene to continue their work.
Chief, you identified, did you identify the shooter in this case yet?
Yes, we have identified the suspect. It's a 28-year-old female white, actually a Nashvilleian or lives in the Nashville area. We are having ongoing investigation as it pertains to her at this time.
Located her place of where she lived, and you have officers there?
We have.
Was she wearing body armor?
Was she wearing body armor? I can't say that far into the investigation. I don't remember seeing it, but I can't say for certain if she had body armor on or not.
Does she have any connection to the church?
From my initial findings is that at one point she was a student at that school, but unsure what year, all of that. But that's what I've been told so far.
Can you give any word on social media, or have their social media been examined at this point?
The investigations are still going at this point. Our federal partners, our state partners, we're all looking into that to see exactly. This is still fluid at the time, but we're looking at everything.
Did anybody pull the fire alarm? You know?
Don't remember a fire alarm going out. I was told there were kids that evacuated into a wood line. They had the presence of mind to do that and to go to a fire hall. Once we arrived on scene, we had everyone moved to First Baptist Church, Woodmont, and that way we could get parents and children reunited, and then ultimately make the notification on the 3 kids. So.
Do we know yet if the side door she entered and was unlocked?
There was a door that was entered. All doors were locked to our understanding, and how exactly she got in at this point is still under investigation. There is a vehicle that was nearby that gave us clues as into who she was, and but as stated, that investigation is still ongoing.
Did the school have school shooter protocol?
They did have protocol. To my understanding, we had, unfortunately, 3 kids that were tragically hurt. It could have been far, far worse.
Okay, folks, we'll be back again before 4 o'clock. Okay? Thank you.
We've just heard from everybody who's involved in this, and obviously, according to Chief John Drake, Metro Police will be basically taking care of this because it's been a fluid situation. The one thing that he said that we did not know is that the suspect is a 28-year-old female white who lives in Nashville, and at one point, they believe she may have attended this school.
I think that's a huge finding there as well. I know everybody's wanting to know in these moments why. What is the motive?
Exactly.
Who is this person? And now we know at one point that she attended the Covenant School. We know right now that they have her address. They are there working to, likely gather search warrants if they haven't already, and possibly see, were there any findings at her home that indicated that something was going wrong and that she was planning to commit such an act of violence out there. So we know they are at her Nashville address working to gather more details as well. But again, we know that they are going to come back with another press conference, likely around 4 o'clock. It looks like to be like 2-hour increments right now. We had originally heard from them at 12 p.m. this afternoon, another one at 2, and then we're going to hear from them again at 4 o'clock with likely new findings as well.
And Chief Drake talking about being brought to tears, seeing those children being reunited. Some of those families did get to reunite today at Woodmont Baptist Church, right in the heart of Green Hills, off Hillsborough, of course, where Woodmont intersects, and Olivia Michael has been there speaking to parents, getting answers for us. Olivia, can't even imagine that scene. Catch us up on where you are and what you've seen.
Sure, Ben. Well, we are right outside the Reunification Center here at Woodmont Baptist Church. Address is 2100 Woodmont Boulevard, just sort of off of Hillsborough Pike. And like you said, it really is kind of unimaginable. It's been an organized situation here. Parents are still, even hours after this has happened, making their way in. And the look on their faces is concern, fear, desperation. But the good news is, as you had mentioned, that they are being reunited with their children. I'm currently joined now by Dr. Talwar, who is a social psychologist and co-founder of the Unity of Faiths Foundation. Tell me what brought you here today.
Myself and my colleague Pam Lewis, we came here because we heard what happened, the horrible scenes. As a crisis psychologist or a social psychologist working in Nashville as well as in Liverpool in the UK, it was only my duty to come over and offer my services to support the parents, the school, the police, the city council. So I came here, and then we were led inside and to see we can offer our services to counsel or to mentor, just to speak to them, offer a hand of support and put a hand, put a arm around their shoulder or give them a hug or something. Because at this present moment, there was all I could see in their eyes was fear. All I could see in their eyes was a lot of anger as well at the same time. There was a lot of crying going on that you can imagine in there. So the scenes were not very unpleasant scenes in the sense of like, my heart just went out there. I'm being a psychologist, but I got incredibly emotional as well at the same time.
And that was something that I was going to ask you. You've already talked about it, but what was the atmosphere like? Our Ben Hall kind of had a vantage point earlier, and he said, he described it as somber.
Yes, it was actually. And it was like, like a funeral or something. It was that terrible, and people didn't know, but you can see it, that whole walking through people's, the whole of the aisle. I'm walking into a church and suddenly you think you're in a funeral. It was terrible. It must be terrible for the parents, obviously. It must be terrible for the families as well at the same time. But I just want to say the police did a fantastic job. The city council is doing a fantastic, the deputy mayor was here as well at the same time, still here, and the school doing a wonderful job. But I think we've got to realize, guys, that, sometimes, yes, this is a mental health problem. We know this is a mental health problem. And we've got to find a way to take away the stigma of mental health, because the stigma is still there. And then on top of that, the country is split. You have a split of the country where 50% want the gun law, so 50% don't want the gun law. So like we had in Britain, for example, we had a Brexit referendum. Let the public choose what they would like. So this way, no one's in the way, the public will choose, and then, you know what, we've had 100 shootings in 2023 this year so far. We're still in March. So all I can say is this is not a Nashville problem, this is not a Tennessee problem, this is an American situation which everybody needs to get and solve.
I want to talk to you about the road ahead, the path to healing for these students and these families. But first, can you describe, was it a full room in there? If you had to take a guess, how many adults would you say were in the room?
It was like a huge church, and it was packed, completely packed inside. So you can imagine, I don't know how many, 100, maybe more, but it was completely packed inside.
Yeah, because we do know that there were about, on any given day, just over 200 students.
Maybe.
So that would make sense.
That would.
Kind of like we were talking about earlier, obviously a traumatic, incredibly painful situation, both for the children and for the adults. Are parents going to have to now have difficult conversations with their little ones?
Well, I think so, because we don't need a child to go through this situation where they'll be scarred for the rest of their lives. And that's really important, that we need to identify, speak to the children, find a way to evaporate this memory and move them forward. Because normally when someone goes through mental health issues, there's always been a scar in the past that sort of like springs up, and that's why it's important that we deal with the children and also the parents, that, you know what, they need counseling, they need support, let's get them the support.
So how do parents and guardians open up that dialogue with their little ones?
I think it's really important is, firstly, is you comfort them first, that, you're safe, you're with me, nothing's going to happen, I'm here now, so don't worry about that. Then what you do, if a conversation comes up from the child, address it. Do not ignore it. Address it there and then, because if you don't address it, it will linger on the child's mind, thinking, okay, I'll ask tomorrow, I'll ask tomorrow. So what happens is when you ask by tomorrow, it just increases, and that stays in the child's brain psychologically.
We're talking about the children, but talk to me about the adults. As a parent, as a grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, surely this is traumatic for them too.
This is not going to go away. This is not going to go away. This is going to scar them as well at the same time. So that's why it's important to find a counseling or a psychologist for the family in general, not just for the child or for the parent, for the family. Each should go in there, have a support system for them to counsel them all, one by one. I think it's really important.
How long do you plan on being at this location?
Well, I'm here now, and I'm offering my services as much as I can, and we're working together. We're doing this project called the Road to Nashville, now the Road to Memphis, and hopefully this is about mental health, and hopefully now that whole awareness of that we're bringing through the project will take away the stigma of mental health. Yeah. Pray to God about that.
A really important conversation and really wonderful advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Addition to Dr. Talwar, as we mentioned earlier, the Red Cross is here on site providing disaster mental health workers in addition to spiritual care. Food, water. We just spoke with a neighbor who said she brought by some Edley's barbecue. These simple little acts that really could be a tremendous gesture of comfort, and the neighbor and the community is just rallying together as we think about the families of those involved. Again, we are here at the Reunification Center. That is Woodmont Baptist Church, address 2100 Woodmont Boulevard, and we'll continue to bring you more information as we learn more. But for now, we'll go ahead and send it back to you guys.
Thanks, Olivia.
So true, Joe. This conversation that's now going to be had about mental health, and he talked about how, your hope is just that these little babies' lives aren't scarred forever and that they can eventually move on. We have team coverage, though, for you. We have crews scattered all throughout Metro Nashville. We're going to get right to Alexandra Cohen, who has been following this since news first broke. Alexandra, it was heartbreaking. I heard you on the air earlier. You grew up in this community. You have so many friends, family members who they saw little kids taken off from that school, sprinting, running, trying to get to safety. It's my understanding you've been talking to some parents out there at a nearby school.
I touched base with some friends on text messages. Are your kids okay? It hits home when I grew up just a mile away from this school. I went to elementary school at St. Paul across the street. I grieve with these families, especially for the ones who lost 3 children today. It's just so heartbreaking. Moments ago, we saw 3 women over here huddled together. They were praying, just taking a moment. You could hear a pin drop. Some people walking outside of their offices in Burn Hills, just kind of soaking in the scene. If you can see over here is where the TBI and Metro has set up somewhat of a command post to be here. The road is still closed, as you can see. It's quiet. People just coming out here trying to figure out what's going on, if their loved ones are safe at this time. On our way over here, we stopped by J.T. Moore Middle School, where there was actually a line of parents who were waiting to pick up their children. Honestly, when these things happen, you just think, I want to hug my child. I want to hug them tightly. And we talked to one mom, Devika Kumar, who she ran to J.T. Moore to pick up her child. And here's what she had to say.
But it happened so close to here, and it could have been here. It happened right next door to where my parents are living in an assisted living facility. My heart just breaks for the parents of those kids. About lost it when I saw the school buses coming down my street, escorted by police cars, to take them to see, to meet with their families.
As for Devika and other Nashville and Green Hills families, they'll certainly be holding their children a little bit tighter tonight. Hunter, back to you guys.
She talked about that soundbite there, just how her heart broke when she saw those school buses driving by. I was out there on Hillsborough Pike earlier this morning running some errands in a same kind of situation. You knew something was instantly wrong when you see that law enforcement response out there. It was ambulance after fire truck, dozens of police cars just rushing as quickly as possible to get to that school, and you instantly just know something is wrong. Your first instinct is to pray for these families who that all of their lives. Everybody who was there, who saw it, who heard the gunfire in that school, their lives are forever changed.
You talk about one of the most affluent and busy parts of Nashville, and the parents desperately trying to get to Woodmont Baptist there on Hillsborough Road. The traffic there was just absolutely chaotic earlier. Emily Luxon is high above in Sky 5 for us, taking in the scene as to what it looks like now, and really the heart of Nashville. Emily, what are you seeing from high above?
This is actually the closest to the scene that we have been able to get all day. There have been flying restrictions in place, so obviously we don't interfere with law enforcement and other investigators out here at the scene. Right now, we're about 1,500 feet above the scene, which is still very active. And I want to get you a closer look at that from our camera here at Sky 5. You can see the Covenant School there off of Burton Hills Boulevard, as well as the church. There is still crime scene tape all around both of those buildings, a very, very large scene. We are seeing law enforcement officers actively walking around that property. We know Metro Police, Metro Police, Nashville Fire, the TBI are all on the scene and have been there throughout the morning. You can see right there some damage to the building. We have seen one glass door that was shattered on one side of the building, as well as a window on the opposite side of the building. That's all I'm able to see as far as damage to the actual structure at this point. But again, still very active, still lots of people out there walking around, I'm sure inspecting and making sure every inch of that property has been covered as they continue to investigate. We heard from Chief Drake just a short time ago, who said he was very pleased with the quick response to this shooting and praised not only his officers but the others who arrived on scene quickly and were able to respond as well as they could to just a completely tragic situation. They will obviously be on the scene for hours. They will continue to update us as the day goes on. We're expecting another update from Metro Police in a couple of hours, but we will continue to stay up here in Sky 5 and keep you updated as well, so we can kind of see a broader look at that scene. For now, I will send it back to you.
Thank you, Emily. I understand that the reason that the glass door was broken is because the shooter shot it out. So I think that's why that.
And that's what's so hard, right? You lock these doors, you implement all of these safety protocols, and yet you still have somebody who is going to shoot through the door. So this school did everything right? They had all these active shooter trainings, and they were as well prepared as possible. And yet, even in an instance like this, we see the shooter shoot through a door and ultimately gain access inside.
You're right. Now time for Olivia Michael. Let's check back in with her and Ben Hall with some new information.
Yeah, that's right. We are still here, as we have been all morning, and will continue to be at the Reunification Center. That is Woodmont Baptist Church, address 2100 Woodmont Boulevard. Children have been brought to the church. Parents and family members are here, and we're learning that they are reuniting. They are getting to hug and kiss their little ones, their loved ones. And Ben has so kindly been running over to get a better vantage point sort of inside the Reunification Center. And you've seen a lot, Ben. Tell me what you've observed.
We don't want to get our camera too close because this is the most sensitive of situations.
Right.
But I just talked to a pastor who is inside and came out and told me a little bit of what's going on. So there are a large number of parents that are inside in the sanctuary. So they take the parents in the sanctuary. You can see from pictures from the outside, there are lots of police officers here. Anyone who goes in that building, they check their ID. They make sure that they're affiliated with the school, that their kids go to that school. So the parents are upstairs in the sanctuary. The children that came here in buses, we saw that earlier, they are downstairs. The parents are being called up, 3 families, 3 different sets of families at a time. And one parent is, again, they have to be identified. Then they identify the child. And then one parent goes to the car, and the other parent picks the child up and takes them to the car. So we're seeing now a slow stream of children come out with one parent and get in their car and drive away. It's a slow stream. We're told there's still a couple hundred people in the sanctuary right now. There's still a couple hundred people. It's a slow process, a very deliberative process. There is a lot of help inside that church. There's a lot of counselors, there are a lot of police officers, there are ambulances right outside here. So that gives you some sense of what's going on inside.
And to your point about the quantity of people in the church, Don Aaron said earlier that on a normal day, I think there's about 209 students. So when you think about their parents, their family members, you multiply that. It's a busy church in there. Lots of family members. And something that you hit on that we should really focus is that this is a process. They're not going to release them all at once. They're being deliberate and careful about how they reunite the children with their families. So this could take a couple hours.
It probably will. It's been going on for a couple hours, and my understanding is at this moment there's still a couple hundred people up there. So parents are having to be very patient in what has to be a very difficult situation, but they are sitting in their pews in that church, in that sanctuary. They are called up 3 at a time. One parent goes and gets the child, the other parent goes to the car, and then they can go home.
Have you been able to get a close enough look at the faces of the adults and the children as they're coming back together, maybe getting in the car? What do they look like to you?
I've seen one child crying. I've seen 2 children crying. I've seen the parents traumatized. So yeah, you do get a sense. I haven't seen overt expressions of emotion, but you can tell almost kind of shell-shocked. They're walking out. I have seen a couple of kids that are in tears, understandably, walking to their car with one adult, with, I guess, one parent. So again, they're not all coming out at once. It's not like that. It's a slow trickle of people coming out and getting in their cars and driving away. And I haven't talked to anyone who was there. We're letting them just kind of get in their car and drive away.
Right. We want to give the family and the students that space to cope, to heal. This is a traumatic situation, and surely they're still digesting, trying to understand what happened, because one thing we have to remember is those students who are inside were classmates and friends of the 3 children who were killed and the faculty that were killed. Many of the people in this building knew the people who were killed. And earlier you and I had talked about that when the buses of children arrived, we could hear singing, which in a way, you know, it's uplifting, but then you wonder, do they understand what is happening? And it seems like now that comprehension is starting to sort of set in.
There's no doubt it's sinking in now. It's sank in immediately for the parents. The children, you know that they're being kept as happy and as comfortable as they possibly can be. But again, they're kind of downstairs away from all that's going on, and the parents are upstairs. We did see a tragic situation I described earlier where police came out with a woman. They had their arm around her. There were 2 older people following her. They took her straight to a police car. They waved everyone off. They turned on their lights and they drove out of here. There were 2 police cars that were part of that. We were told they were going to Vanderbilt. So that sounds like a situation where that's a family that was being taken to Vanderbilt. So that's the worst possible scenario. We are seeing many others where parents are walking out and getting in a car, and that's what's happening.
And our Chris Davis was on the receiving end of what you witnessed. Chris is at Vanderbilt, and he saw those cars pull up. He saw who he believes were the parents or the family that you mentioned, and it really hits home. It's real. They have a loved one that could possibly be a victim of this school shooting. Have you seen any other similar situations like that?
I have not. So I haven't seen any others, and I've been coming back here and going back up there, so I haven't seen that. But it's clear police were so kind to that family, and they wanted to care for her as much as they could. Right. They got her in that car, and they got her out of here with a total escort going down Hillsborough Road to Vanderbilt. But I've only seen that one time. Sure. That's the only time I've seen that.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, providing that vantage point. I know a lot of people have questions, wonder how long this process is going to go on for. As we discussed, probably hours. But Ben has wonderful eyes. He's keeping those eyes close inside the reunification center and then reporting back to us what he sees and what he knows. Again, we are at the reunification center at Woodmont Baptist. We are told that there are counselors, there is spiritual care, water, food. Neighbors told us they just came by with Ed Lee's barbecue with sandwiches, and they want to make sure that the family and the students are feeling as comforted as possible.
Surrounding churches are helping and coming by. There's a lot of activity.
It's only been a few hours since this all went down, and we are already seeing an outpour of love, support, kindness. But with all that being said, we've said it all morning and we'll say it again. If you don't have a reason to come down here, please don't, because this is a very busy scene right now. Families are trying to come and go, get to their little ones, and then get home so they can spend time together and hold them.
There were 4 Metro buses, WeGo buses, that were kept right outside the church in case they were needed. At least 3 of those have been released, so those have gone. But yeah, obviously, it's always congested here on Hillsborough Road. It's even more congested now, so don't come anywhere near this area.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Ben. We're going to go ahead and send it back to you guys.
All right, Ben and Olivia, thank you so much. And as you just heard, Ben said that he talked to a pastor who told him the parents were in the sanctuary. They all had their ID checked to make sure that they belonged there. The children came in buses. 3 sets of families were called up at a time. One parent, he said, went to get the car. The other parent brought the child to the car. They're not releasing them all at once. And still a couple of 100 people are still there. Some of the students and the teachers and the parents are still there. He said he did see 2 children crying and the parents looking traumatized, as I think we all understand.
You know, as a parent and waiting in that line, all you want is for the children to come rushing out and grab them and hold them and show them that security. But it is a painstaking process. As Ben and Olivia alluded to, you can't just do that. But I can't imagine being a parent waiting in an hours-long line just to be reunited with your child who wants to see you so badly. And Hunter, you had a great point earlier about these kids are so young, they likely don't even have a cell phone to just text to say, Mom, I'm okay, I miss you, I can't wait to see you. They can't even do that. So I can't even imagine the patience they have to have. And you just pray for all those parents and the children just waiting to even be reunited.
Well, it struck me too. It is almost, 2:30. The shooting happened 4 hours ago, and you think that this is just the first time now, 4 hours later, that a lot of these parents are seeing their babies for the first time, and how scared these kids must have been waiting all of that time without their mom and dad, and how these parents just long to see their kid safe. We had heard there from Chris and Olivia that these kids showed up in the bus and they were singing, and it reminds you of just how innocent these lives are. Singing on the school bus as they, just ran out from a school shooting. But too, when you think of just the innocence that was lost today, we had heard from Hannah McDonald earlier, whose mom had just stepped outside from that school and she heard the gunshots in the parking lot. You know very well that each of these kids probably heard those gunshots in the school this morning, and just something that stays with you. And it's heartbreaking to see that preschoolers up through 6th grade have now had to deal with this at such an early age.
Classes are over today. I have the information here. Kindergarten to 6, they're over at 3 p.m. So they'd be getting ready to go. Normally they'd be getting ready to leave school for the day.
Ben Hall alluded to the tight-knit church community, not only here in Nashville, but especially here in Green Hills. And my daughter attends a different church preschool here in Nashville. And this community is just grieving together. The school director has been texting me for them to have to go on lockdown. These are kids younger than 5 years old. Just to make them feel safe, even temporarily, is so sad. And you think about, all the emotion to process. I think we heard from a psychiatrist earlier just about how to speak to your children, because they will, even if they're at a neighboring school, will have questions. Sissy Goff is a Nashville-based child psychologist, a friend of mine. She's a counselor, and she gave some tips I'd like to share of how to talk to your children. Stay calm, be the source, let them lead, give them space to feel, and it's okay to feel with them. It's okay to show that emotion. Answer age-appropriate questions and be honest. Talk about what they can control. Look for the helpers. Make sure you're a helper, and ask what would help them feel safe at school. And don't feel like you have to have all the answers, because admittedly we don't. And that was alluded to in the press conference earlier. We are so split, and there seems to be a 50-50 split in Washington as to what the answer is, and especially right here in Tennessee.
I love that quote, though. Look for the helpers. You see it in every tragedy that we have here in Nashville, whether it be the tornadoes and now a mass shooting. Look for the helpers, because there is certainly good that will come from this. I mean, we even heard Olivia out there talking earlier. There's just people showing up with barbecue, doing what they can. Whatever you can do to make people feel any kind of sense of hope in these moments. Our Chris Davis is standing by now live for us at Vanderbilt Hospital. Chris, what are you seeing out there?
Hunter, unfortunately, we're seeing some just really hard, raw examples of emotion out here, as is sometimes tragically part of the process. Is family members have to come to where remains are, and that appears to be the stage that we're in right now at Vanderbilt. So just a few moments ago, we saw just this gut-wrenching example of potentially a family member, we don't know their identity, but just screaming out in agony. And you can certainly understand that. I mean, especially if they lost someone, especially a child, here being at the Children's Hospital, and that reaction. And it's just almost even a little torn as a journalist of witnessing that, because part of it tells this tragic day in Nashville, and part of it is also just so hard to see for any other human being to go through something like that. But it appears that is now kind of the phase that we're in here at Vanderbilt, is you know, family members that are impacted by this are getting police escorts here to the emergency room to go through the next steps, because as we've talked about all day, this is a crime. This is a crime scene out over at the school, and there are different steps that have to be taken as this investigation moves forward. But it's just a reminder of the excruciating agony that so many families that are victims of crime have to go through. And so that's just kind of the phase we're in here at Vanderbilt. And it's just such a striking and heartbreaking contrast, because this is a place where you should be sending loved ones to get better. And that's just not the story today. I wish it was, but it's just not the story today. It's not the story here at Vanderbilt. And so we'll continue to be eyes and ears out here for you all, and we'll report more of what we see and what we know.
So well said. And I don't know what else you can say at this point. And I just found out, I got a text from my wife that Sissy Goff, who I mentioned, the child counselor, is now at Woodmont Baptist. They're offering their services. They're with Daystar Counseling Ministries here in Nashville, talking to parents, children, staff members, anybody who just needs to pour their heart out or find some sense of security on a day where it feels like there is none.
And TBI's David Roush, head of the TBI, said, and it's something that we sometimes don't think about, he said, we believe in prayer in the South. And we know we've all said, oh, we need more than prayers and thoughts and good wishes. But prayer is definitely part of how we operate. And we need that, too, from everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, you just have to.
Prayers for everybody involved, right? You have those 3 sets of parents who will never see their kid again, 3 staff members who will never have their loved ones walk through the door, and just such a senseless act of violence, something that did not have to happen and unfortunately did, right? Nobody thought that this was going to be the outcome when they sent their little kid to school today. And so it's just a tough reality that everybody is dealing with this afternoon. We've been hearing from law enforcement throughout the day, and something that we have heard both from President Biden and also Chief John Drake is just the response time from Metro Nashville Police. That active shooter call came in, guys, at 10:13. The shooter was taken down at 10:27 this morning.
It was quick.
Incredible. It was quick.
It was.
And it just speaks to the fact that more lives weren't lost in this. And it also just goes to show that Metro Nashville Police, they had the training and the directive to go in immediately. There was no, we're going to wait and
like Uvalde.
Like Uvalde, when we have seen such just a criticalness of the way that Pete Arredondo down there handled that and how they waited for so long. That's not what we are seeing here. Everybody quick to point out just how lucky we are to have the men and women who serve on Metro Nashville Police.
And one thing that's improved so greatly is not only the response time, but also the partnerships. You heard them allude to this. Federal partnerships, state partnerships, local agencies all working together, and that certainly helps. If you're just now joining us, we do want to get you caught up. If you missed the latest press conference from authorities, we want to bring that back to you so you can listen in to what you might have missed over the last half hour.
All right, this is our second briefing on this active shooter situation. Speaking to you at this point will be Nashville Chief of Police John Drake, the Director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation David Roush, Nashville District Attorney Glenn Funk, and then Nashville Fire Director Chief William Swan. Again, this is the second briefing. There will be other briefings to be held here in the same spot later this afternoon. We'll continue to brief throughout the rest of the day. Chief Drake.
First and foremost, I want to say thank you all for being here on this very unfortunate situation. My heart and prayers go out to the families of the 6 people who were tragically injured. What I know at this point is at 10:13 today, our officers responded to a shots fired call to Covenant School. It's a church school. Officers immediately responded. A team of 5 immediately went in the school, went to where gunshots were being heard and engaged the suspect. We have identified the suspect right now, tentatively a 28-year-old female white. We know the address of that person as well, and so we have some ongoing investigations as to that. We have 3 adult victims, and we have 3 children who have been identified and their families have been contacted. Right now, I will refrain from saying the ages, other than to say I was literally moved to tears to see this and the kids as they were being ushered out of the building. I want to say thanks to all of our partners, to the FBI, to the ADF, and other federal partners, to the THP, Tennessee Highway Patrol, the TBI, the District Attorney, and to the Fire Department, who all came together and seamlessly addressed this situation as quickly as possible. I've already gotten requests from the national media about a great response. We're still assessing that as well. But what I can say, and what I've said before, is that whenever I hope that we would never have this situation, that if we ever did, we would not wait. We would immediately go in and we would immediately engage the person perpetrating this horrible crime. And so that's all I can say. Right now we have David Rouse, director of the TBI, who will come after me to address his portion. And then we have others that will say something as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Again, I want to echo what Chief has said in reference to the great support and the great teamwork that has been taking place here, and as well as sending our heartfelt prayers to the families, to this community of these victims. Now, I know there'll be people who want to criticize us for prayers, but that's the way we do that in the South, right? We believe in prayer, and we believe in the power of prayer, and so our prayers go out to these families. The role of the TBI in this investigation is we have been asked by General Funk to assist in the officer-involved portion of this incident. So the incident where the officers engaged the suspect, we are assisting the Metro investigation. And the reason we've got Metro doing the primary investigation is because it was a fluid scene. So there wasn't a single stop in the action. And so as they investigate the homicides, then we felt it was most appropriate for them to continue that investigation. But we will assist as in our role as an independent oversight on the officer-involved situation. And so that will be the role of TBI. We, too, want to thank all of our partners. It is special. We've had this conversation, unfortunately, too many times in Tennessee, and that is that you wish you wouldn't have to do these types of scenes. But when you do, you want to have the working relationships that we have in our law enforcement community here in Tennessee. It is amazing. And we've all come together as one and working very tirelessly. And we'll continue to work together to address this situation. It's a horrible, senseless tragedy. And we will be here working with our partners to get through it. And next, I'd like to introduce the District Attorney General for this area, Glenn Funk.
This is the ultimate crime when school children and caregivers are the victims of senseless gun violence. Can't say anything before we first express our concerns for the victims and their families and the extended number of victims that are traumatized by today's events. I came out on the scene today because our current operating procedure is that when an officer is involved in a shooting, that the TBI comes out, and I knew that this was a unique case, and I want to make sure that everything was handled appropriately. Director Roush was out here almost at the exact same time I got here, and Chief Drake had already been on the scene for a while. The three of us met and talked about how the investigation was going to be handled. We made a joint decision affirming what the two law enforcement leaders, how they wanted to proceed, which was that Metro was going to handle the bulk of this, but the TBI would participate in a capacity to continue with making sure that we have transparency and everything, and to make sure that any backup that MNPD needs in this continued investigation would be provided. Can't not stress enough how seamlessly that worked to have a conversation and a decision to be made quickly and appropriately as far as how the case was going to be handled from here. Hats off to Chief Drake and to Director Roush. I also want to thank Chief Swan and our federal partners as well. While I cannot comment about the ongoing nature of the investigation, I'm really impressed with the work that's being done by law enforcement.
Yes, good afternoon. First, let me just say, as everyone else, what a tragic day here in Nashville. So our hearts and our prayers do go out to all the family members and also the first responders that actually made this call. As always, the fire department and Office of Emergency Management, our job is to support. And we were here at the beginning and we'll be here until the end. We just ask that everyone, again, as it was said earlier about prayer, we ask for that. And the ongoing support that's needed from our standpoint is to give support in any area that's asked for on the scene. So again, we thank you, and from this point forward, we'll just continue on with our mission and try to bring some type of closure and resolution. Thank you.
I anticipate there will be another briefing at or before 4 o'clock. We will entertain 2 or 3 questions at this moment before these gentlemen have to go back to the scene to continue their work.
Chief, you identified, did you identify the shooter in this case yet?
Yes, we have identified the suspect. It's a 28-year-old female white, actually a Nashvilleian or lives in the Nashville area. We are having ongoing investigation as it pertains to her at this time.
Located her place of where she lived, and you have officers there?
We have.
Was she wearing body armor?
Was she wearing body armor? I can't say that far into the investigation. I don't remember seeing it, but I can't say for certain that she had body armor on or not.
Does she have any connection to the church?
From my initial findings is that at one point she was a student at that school, but unsure what year, all of that. But that's what I've been told so far.
Did you give any word on social media, or has the social media been examined at this point?
The investigations are still going at this point. Our federal partners, our state partners, we're all looking into that to see exactly. This is still fluid at the time, but we're looking at everything.
Did anybody pull the fire alarm? You know?
Don't remember a fire alarm going out. I was told there were kids that evacuated into a wood line. They had the presence of mind to do that and to go to a fire hall. Once we arrived on scene, we had everyone moved to First Baptist Church, Woodmont, and that way we could get parents and children reunited, and then ultimately make the notification on the 3 kids. So.
Do we know yet if the side door she entered and was unlocked?
There was a door that was entered. All doors were locked to our understanding, and how exactly she got in at this point is still under investigation. There is a vehicle that was nearby that gave us clues as into who she was, and but as stated, that investigation is still ongoing.
Did the school have school shooter protocol?
They did have protocol. To my understanding, we had, unfortunately, 3 kids that were tragically hurt. It could have been far, far worse.
Okay, folks, we'll be back again before 4 o'clock. Okay? Thank you.
You are listening to the second press conference of the day in regards to the school shooting this morning. We had heard from law enforcement around 12 o'clock. We heard from them again at 2, and that was a quick little recap if you were just joining us. Joint law enforcement out there. We had Metro Police out there, the TBI, and also the DA's office. And, you know, each one of them talked about just prayer. That is what we do here in the South. We already know that different organizations are planning to meet tonight as well.
That's right. Actually, tonight at Belmont University at the Bell Tower at 4 o'clock, you're asked to come. All are welcome to pray. And then later at Lipscomb University at 7 p.m. We hope that you will attend. We'll be there to cover the services.
Yeah, we have Chris Davis moving there as well to hopefully talk to people who are joining in prayer. Nashville coming together. We need that now more than ever before. At least some sense of community, some sense of support, some sense of security, even if it comes from one of these services at Lipscomb or Belmont. We mentioned how tight-knit some of these communities are here in Nashville. All these churches right there together, close to Covenant. Emily Luxon's been high above in Sky 5 watching the action. Emily, what are you seeing right there right now?
Well, I can tell you this is still a very active scene. We can give you a closer look here at the Covenant School just off of Burton Hills Boulevard and Hillsborough Pike in Nashville. You can see, as we get a little bit of a closer look here, there is crime scene tape all around the school and the church building. Still multiple law enforcement officers on scene. Of course, this is hours after the original shooting at 10:13 this morning, but still a very active scene. We know Metro Police are out there, Nashville firefighters, the TBI, all out there. This is a team effort as they continue to investigate. As we've gotten a closer look at the building, as we've been circling around here, we have noticed some damage, particularly what appears to be multiple bullet holes in a window in the upstairs part of the school. If we can get a closer look there, you can see there's also shattered glass on the ground floor, a door, 2 different doors that appear to be broken. Investigators have certainly been circling that area, focusing in on those areas as they continue to try to learn more about what happened. But again, this is expected to be active for hours as law enforcement continue to circle the property to try to learn more about what happened. We will continue to stay up here in Sky 5 for the next few hours and monitor as they do their work on the ground. But now I'll send it back to you.
One of those doors that was damaged out there, we likely know one of those is from the shooter who, those doors were locked, guys. She shot through the doors. This was a school who, they had planned for this. They had held different active shooter training drills. Correct. The doors were locked, and yet still this 28-year-old woman shot through the door.
And she, they believe, was a former student there. So we don't know. Obviously, that might have something to do with what happened, but we'll find out more the upcoming days. There's a lot to digest.
It is, and just seeing that, it just makes you sick to your stomach. I mean, I can't even process some of this now that we're talking about families who will not be reunited today, as that reunification process still happens at Woodmont Baptist just down the street. What those children are thinking, what the parents are thinking, what to say, what's the right answer. Sissy Goff, who's a counselor, a friend of mine with Daystar Counseling Ministries here in Nashville, trying to connect her with Ben Hall, who's still there at Woodmont Baptist. They're offering their support just to talk to anyone who needs to get this off their chest. Because we mentioned earlier from authorities, they talked about the PTSD, even for the responding team, first responders going there and seeing this scene, for them processing this and dealing with this, and what this means for not only here in Nashville, but all across the country. The president weighed in on this just over an hour ago, and here we go. So we'll see what legislation perhaps is at least discussed here in Tennessee and nationally to see where we go from here.
We just hope it's not more of the same, because every time there's a school shooting, this happens. We say, you know, we got to do something, but nothing's really done.
And you hear from our people there on the ground how much thoughts and prayers are appreciated at this time, and they sure are. But we heard from President Biden earlier who addressed the nation, and while he also gave his thoughts and prayers, he also said, this is ripping our communities apart, calling on Congress to pass this assault weapons ban. That's something he has been, very vocal about being in office. And, now more than ever, I think gun control is in a lot of people's minds when it happens, especially in your own community.
Exactly right. Now let's go out to Alexandra Cohen, who is outside of the Covenant School. Alexandra.
Update for you. If you were wanting to check on your loved ones who are at one of these assisted living communities in Burton Hills, they just reopened Burton Hills Boulevard within the past 5 minutes. I talked to a Metro officer here on scene, and they said they're reopening the roads surrounding the Covenant School except for Harding Place. And I meant to notice that or to say to you guys, there's offices all around here. A lot of those people have been sheltering in place. Some people wanted to go and check on their elderly loved ones who are at nursing homes in this community. Well, now they're reopening these roads so that can happen. I know that's important to a lot of the people who have loved ones here at this time. When we were driving over to the scene, coming down Harding Place, JT Moore caught my eye. There were parents lining up at the door to check on their children. Some of the moms and dads were picking their children up from school early. They told me they just wanted to hug their children tight and let them know that they're safe. Here's what one of them had to say.
I'm just in such shock. But yeah, I mean, it's heavy. I mean, you think you can protect the kids, but in reality is we have such little control when they're at school, and we trust our law enforcement, we trust our schools to look after them.
That lack of control, something families across the mid-state will be struggling with today. Many of us just feel so helpless in a situation like this, especially with the families of the little ones and the adults who didn't make it. Here at Channel 5, our thoughts are with all of you guys at this time. Back to you.
So well said. Alexander, who grew up, as she mentioned, and went to school just down the road. I saw Carrie Sharp when I was coming in. Carrie's live outside of Covenant for us right now. And Carrie, I saw you. We're both parents. We get the luxury and ability to go home and hug our children tonight and tell them how much we love them. We know that 3 sets of families won't have that luxury here tonight, and certainly praying for them. I just want to get your thoughts about this as a parent, as a journalist, as a mom, what you're thinking right now, what that scene looks like outside of this precious school here in Nashville.
Oh, Ben, this is so hard. This is a hard day on everybody touched by this situation, for us covering this situation. We are parents. I have elementary school children. I had to call home and say, make sure that the kids don't watch the news tonight. It's too much for them. I have a 2nd grader and a 4th grader. We know that the kids here at the Covenant School are preschool through 6th grade. These are children. They shouldn't have to deal with this, but this has come knocking on their door today. And this is something that will be part of their life story. I do want to tell you, we are here right outside the church entrance to the Covenant Presbyterian Church. You can see officers are still staged there. They just opened this part of the road, but we see officers here, both in marked and unmarked cars, the motorcycles as well. Around this area is an office complex, several different buildings. Traffic has returned on this road, but nothing is normal here. When we pulled into this parking lot and started to set up, we found just a very organic scene, a very moving scene. 3 women stopped, huddled together, arms around each other, praying in this parking lot. We gave them that space, we gave them time, and I approached them gently when they were finished praying and just said, what brought you here? What are you praying for? And I found out that these women are strangers. They were compelled to come here and just lift this school and this community in prayer. And it really was moving. I want you to listen to what they had to say to me.
As soon as I heard, I was like, I have to get out there to pray, because like the officer said from the TBI, you know, people like to judge us for praying, but no, this is exactly what we need in this time. It is prayer, you know, that we need. That's what's going to change. That's what's going to shift. And we are certainly out here praying for every family that has been connected to this tragedy, for the families of every student that is represented in this school, all the staff, the administrators, and all of our first responders and police department. We are covering everyone in prayer, because that's our first responsibility, is to pray.
And that's what those women were doing today. They were just praying. They really didn't know each other. One of the women said that she, at her church, her pastor a while ago had given all the prayer warriors a zip code to just pray over. And hers is the Green Hills zip code. She doesn't live here. So she just said, when I heard what happened, this is my zip code. I came to pray. I need to cover this area in prayer, and I will continue to do so. I was looking on the school website earlier today, And this really struck me. I don't know if it's their motto or their slogan, but on the website for the Covenant School, it says, shepherding hearts, empowering minds, celebrating childhood. That's their mission here at this school, to celebrate childhood. But evil walked through that door today, and that's just going to be really hard to do going forward. This is a private Christian school, and we have heard time and time again as those children were getting off that bus to go into the reunification center, many of them were singing. We don't know what they were singing, but they were singing, and that's what children should do. So even in this moment of tragedy, this school mission of shepherding hearts, empowering minds, and celebrating childhood is just, I imagine, just clinging on right now, and they are trying to do their very, very best. But again, we are outside the church here, connected to the school, Covenant Presbyterian Church. Officers remain here, but this road is now open. It's already been a long day. The call went out from the school at 10:13. Officers were able to take down the shooter within 14 minutes. We are coming up now on 3 o'clock, and this investigation really is just beginning here at this school as they work to learn more about the shooter, what motivated her, how she became equipped with 2 assault-style rifles and a handgun, and what motivated her to get into the school, how she did it. And of course, we also want to know about the victims and their stories and their connection to the school, and that's what we'll be working to do all day long. I'm going to send it back to you for now.
Carrie, so well said. This will be the worst day in the life of so many parents and children. Carrie, you think about that church, a school, so sacred for so many families here in Nashville, and how tight-knit this community is, and talking to children who will be scared to go to school tomorrow if they attend a different school here in Nashville, in Tennessee, and just trying to process that thought and what to tell your children when they're saying, Mom, Dad, I don't know that I'll be safe, and then I'll see you at the end of the school day. I mean, these are genuine questions that our children are asking.
And Ben, if I could just interject here. I mean, I think, you said we both have children. A lot of people have children. We all know that our children, our young children, do these active shooter drills at school. It's not just the earthquake drills and the fire drills anymore. They do these active shooter drills. That's what happened here today. It was a reality. Something that also struck me today when we just pulled up here, they have their Easter sign out, advertising their services that are coming up just a couple of weeks from now. Easter is about victory. Nothing about today feels like victory is coming. We are seeing evil here today, and our children are experiencing it.
She mentioned these active shooter drills, which we know this school has had in the past. They were as prepared as anybody to handle a situation like this. The doors were locked. Their team knew what to do when something like this happened. Yet you have a shooter who shoots through the door and goes in, like Carrie said, just such evil there inside.
Thanks so much, Gary, for joining us. We'll probably talk to you a little bit later.
You talk about a church and a school that is a preschool through 6th grade that's now a crime scene. Carrie's across the street from the church because you see police motorcycles from Metro who had done a magnificent job by all accounts, responding so quickly and so bravely. Those 5 people who heard the gunshots, we heard from Chief Drake earlier, responding without question, going there and taking out this 28-year-old female shooter that we're still learning more about. We did hear from the chief that perhaps there is some sort of connection to the school, be it she was perhaps a former attendee was there of Covenant. All those answers, though, will give us some sort of idea of where we go. But again, for these families who will never see their loved ones again, from a custodian and students and administrators and teachers at this school, it's absolutely devastating, and there's nothing you can say to bring comfort.
The school will never be the same. I mean, of course, you can go to class and you can have your families there and your kids and the teachers, but it will never be the same. They'll always be looking over their shoulder. They'll always wonder, is today the day? Will this person come back? It's just something that we have to deal with, and that it's the PTSD that they were talking about.
And something these little minds will never forget. It's a school of 209 students, and you know good and well that each of these kids, they heard the gunfire inside, and to hear Carrie, when you hear these stories, that they were still singing on the bus as they were getting to the reunification center. It underscores just the innocence today and also the innocence that was lost. I mean, what, 6th grade? The oldest would be probably 12.
12.
12.
Mm-hmm.
You just think 12 years old, and then everybody else, it's such a young age, all of them, preschool through these 12-year-old kids. Your heart goes out to them, their family members, their teachers. Just senseless.
We mentioned the debate that will continue inevitably in Washington on both sides. We heard from the president earlier. Our Representative Congressman Andy Ogles released a statement recently. I'd like to read that to you if I can. Here's the quote. My family and I are devastated by the tragedy that took place at the Covenant School in Nashville this morning. We are sending our thoughts and prayers to the families of those lost. As a father of 3, I am utterly heartbroken by this senseless act of violence. I'm closely monitoring the situation and working with local officials. Thank you to the brave first responders who have provided support throughout this tragedy. Again, Congressman Andy Ogles, a statement from him a little bit earlier. We've heard from the governor, now the president, so many administrators here. And again, we know the DA, Glenn Funk's office, will be handling this investigation as it proceeds. And you have to respect the commitment and the partnerships that our agencies have together to work on this, to process this crime scene. I mean, they've come out and have been so kind to continue to brief us here in the media to give us the latest. And we do expect one, I think, here in about an hour or so. So please be patient. We're not going to speculate about, I know so many people are wanting more answers, and we hope to hear that here in an hour, but we can only go with what we know so far.
And kudos to the police. They were right on time. I mean, they did as much as they could, as quickly as they could.
14 minutes from the time that active shooter call came in for them to take down the shooter. It is incredible in comparison to what we've seen just nationally when it comes to the response of these school shootings. The president even coming out saying, well done to Metro Nashville Police for getting in and getting out and trying to keep as many people safe as possible. I think still so many people watching. I know Vicki, Ben, and me as well. We're trying to figure out that why, right? The motive behind what could be going through somebody's head. As far as the shooter goes, we know she is a 28-year-old white woman. They describe her as a Nashvilleian. They know her address. They know who she is. And I think that's a conversation, too, we have as a newsroom. You never want to give any shooter the notoriety and get their name out there. But they know who she is. They are at her address trying to figure out any possible clues as to what would cause somebody to do what was done this morning. And Carrie put it best, just evil. It was evil that walked through the doors at that school today.
Or mental health problems. You know, that's a possibility. We have to, as you mentioned, you know, a lot of times it's a mental health issue, but whatever it is, it can't continue.
Again, going with what we know right now, 3 children killed, 3 adults inside that school. We talk about a 14-minute response time from police. We do know that 2 MNPD officers who heard that gunfire did engage that 28-year-old female suspect, and again, according to police, killed her there. We do believe her to be a former student. We're still waiting on a name and for her to be identified. One officer suffered a hand injury during that response. And again, that reunification process, which we saw a video of from earlier just a couple of moments ago there at Woodmont Baptist Church, right there off Hillsborough, adjacent to Woodmont Christian Church, really in the heart of Green Hills, you know, by all accounts, an affluent, safe area right here in the heart of Nashville. So many people shop at the mall down the street, visit all these boutiques and great restaurants and these churches and schools that are right there in the heart as we see just this unspeakable and unimaginable tragedy and grief that's taking place here today. We do know counselors are there on hand at Woodmont Baptist talking to these parents and these children who are seeking some sense of security on this awful afternoon here in Nashville.
And we were told earlier about the reunification center that the way they're doing it as far as bringing the parents together with the children, 3 sets of families are called up from the center. One parent goes to get the car. The other parent brings the child to the car. They are not releasing them all at one time. They are checking their ID to make sure they belong there, that not someone snuck in to, to take advantage of the situation. So there's still a couple of hundred people there. It will probably be a few more hours before everyone is cleared away. They saw, the chief said he saw 2 children crying, and Ben Hull said that, and parents who looked traumatized, and that's not a surprise.
And we understand why they're not releasing everybody at once. It takes time, and you got to figure out who's who and what child belongs with what parent. But to give you guys just context on what these kids and these parents are going through, that shooting happened at 10 o'clock this morning. A lot of them just now being reunited with their family members. 2 o'clock this afternoon. That is 4 hours when a lot of these little babies, they don't have the cell phones to be communicating with their parents out there. So just parents waiting to see their kids waiting to see their parents. And it is a lengthy process, but sure is worth it. But your heart goes out to everybody who is just in that mode of waiting.
We have reporters, our entire News Channel 5 team covering every aspect of this story. And our Jason Lamb actually spoke with Patrick Michaels, a Nashville psychologist with Rogers Behavioral Health. Here's a portion of that conversation.
Sometimes kids will continue to, experience prolonged periods of grief or depression or anxiety. It's important for parents to acknowledge that these things may persist for periods of time, but not always. The parent, the teacher, whoever it is that's in that leadership role with those kids to help them feel like that other people do care about them and that there is still good in the world.
And there's also power in prayer, and there are 2 prayer services going on tonight. Let's tell you about that at Belmont University at the Bell Tower there at 4 o'clock. All are welcome to come. And then if you'd like to attend the one at Lipscomb University, that will begin at 7 p.m. Again, it is open to everyone who feels the need to pray.
I believe Tennessee Tech, I think they're having one around 10 o'clock tonight too. But Ben, you've been talking with psychologists as well, and I love what they had said. Just look for the helpers in these times, the people who are out there willing to do whatever. We saw Carrie talking to those 3 women, total strangers, who went out there and all they had in that moment was to just pray, and how appreciated that is in these times of tragedy.
Yeah, Sissy Goff with Daystar Counseling Ministry. She works with children. She talks to parents about how to talk to your children about something like this. She's actually at Woodmont Baptist Church and trying to connect her with Ben Hall. But some of the tips she gave, if you're a parent tonight and your child comes home, they've heard about this news, how to speak to them about this. Stay calm, be the source, let them lead. Give them space to feel when needed. And it's okay to feel with them. You don't have to be stoned. You can feel things as we are up here today. Answer questions that are age appropriate, certainly, depending on the age of your children. Talk about what they can control. Look for the helpers. Certainly be a helper and ask what might make them feel safe at school tomorrow. Don't feel like you have to have all the answers, and just remind them of the truth that you know. A truth that's very hard, guys, here to process today, when so many of these people that are watching all across the country, right here at home, wondering who will be next? Exactly. When will it be next? And that's a question that we shouldn't have to ask. And we talk about all the things that these schools go through now, this active shooter training, barricading doors, locking the doors, having SROs there on site, and still these things continue to happen.
And it breaks your heart, too. You wonder, is this school the new household name when it comes to a school shooting? You have Uvalde and Sandy Hook, and I grew up right down the street from Columbine, and that was well over 20 years ago. And to think all these decades later that we're still having this conversation, and it is still a problem, that people are going into a place where they're just there to learn. Teachers are there to educate. Kids are ready to learn, and this is still happening. And now it's at our front door here in Nashville. I think that's what's so hard for everybody up here, is you see it all over the place, and how horrible that is. But when it's here in Nashville, and it's here in your face and in your community, I think everybody is grieving in their own way today.
Everyone has some sort of connection. I mentioned the lead pastor at Covenant Church, Presbyterian Church, was my wife's youth leader in Dallas, Texas, with RUF, a Christian organization, and he's now here in Nashville leading this church. And what do you tell congregations across Nashville as we approach Holy Week, Easter Sunday coming up? I thought Carrie evoked when you talk about the hope that Easter brings, the resurrection. It's hard to comprehend, even as a Christian myself, to process what's happened, because you want to have the right answers for your children. My daughter's 4 years old and goes to a church-based preschool here in Nashville. And if she says, "Daddy, what happened at school down the street?" What do you tell her? What do you tell your kids tonight? And it's very difficult, and we certainly understand. That's why these prayer events are happening here at our local universities and colleges tonight. And again, grief counselors will be available to talk to. And I think now we are more open in 2023 to have these conversations about mental health and PTSD and fear and what that means in a world today. So we certainly encourage you, if you're available, to attend one of these 2 prayer events here tonight.
And also, don't forget, I know that, we're speaking about the children, but 3 adults were also killed, and they have family members who will never see them again. And
one's a custodian.
One's a custodian.
And you don't sign up to be a protector when you enter education.
No, you don't.
You go in there thinking you're going to make a difference and teach them everything that you possibly can. And just nobody enters this field going in to this thinking that it's going to be a reality for them. But unfortunately, you see these teachers who, and that's something they now have to weigh, is this something that I am able to do in terms of go through all of these different school shooting trainings and be willing to jump in at moment's notice? And it's just a really sad discussion that we're having to have.
It is. But
it's here we are. And again, as these answers come tonight, we expect a press conference sometime around 4 p.m. from Metro Police and the TBI, and learning about exactly how this went down, what that response looked like. And you see the scenes from earlier today. Parents, church members, leaders, law enforcement all trying to process and grieve. And, we heard from Chief Drake and we heard from Ben Hall, who's been inside Woodmont Baptist where that reunification process is happening. He described a funeral-like scene, blank stares on faces, children crying, adults, parents trying to comprehend what's happened today, to try to sit down at dinner and even think about, this happening right here at home is just incomprehensible.
Where do you begin? Where do you begin with that?
I don't know, and you're right. I mean, Hunter, you're talking about these teachers being leaders, and now we expect them to be perhaps protectors of our children with armed people breaking into schools, and the pressure that puts on our educators all across Tennessee, wondering, this is my job to not only teach them, and again, at a Christian school, teach them about Christ, and now protect their lives.
And to protect their lives, we know this school did everything right when it comes to school security. These doors were locked. They had trainings in the past. They were as equipped as anybody else when it came to keeping their kids protected. And yet you have a 28-year-old gunman who comes in and shoots through that door. And, you like to think that, you can go through all of these things and be prepared and that something like this won't happen. And unfortunately, it just goes to show that it does.
Right, and you talk about where this is here. For those of you who aren't quite as familiar with Nashville, perhaps you're watching from Clarksville and you don't travel this. This is Hillsborough Road, one of the most highly traveled roads in all of Nashville. Mall of Green Hills, just right down the road. Residential area, many churches nearby, schools right there. Hillsborough High School right down the road. You talk about this and what it looked like. My mother-in-law lives right across the street from Covenant, heard the gunshots from earlier today, the fear and the process. And for all those who saw the law enforcement response, squad car after squad car, Nashville Fire Department, Metro Police responding there as quickly as they could, it does strike fear and you wonder what's happened. But again, just an incredible job on their response. 14 minutes to get there to that floor of that precious school and respond and take out this 28-year-old female shooter.
You talk about, too, just everybody who saw those law enforcement vehicles. I was on Hillsborough Pike earlier, and it seemed like everybody just knew this was something that was so serious. Cars just pulling over on both lanes, letting law enforcement after law enforcement, an ambulance come through as they were rushing to get there as quickly as possible. You see just one of them there, and that stunning visual from Sky 5 that we just showed you, too, of that parking lot. So many of those were law enforcement vehicles out there. It was an all-hands-on-deck kind of thing this morning, and just tough to watch.
It is, and to think about the patience these parents have at Woodmont Baptist, where that reunification process is, by all means and by all understanding, it is still happening. We spoke with Ben Hall and Olivia Michael, two of our reporters who've been there stationed at Woodmont Baptist, seeing the parents come out reunited with their children, kind of a painstaking process. One by one, confirming this is indeed the parent or caregiver of a child, either pre-K through 6th grade, the children who attended Covenant School, being reunited, getting back in the car, and again, just wanting that hug that they've waited hours for so patiently, just to be able to go back home and hug a favorite stuffed animal, watch a favorite children's TV show, have a conversation, see their brother or sister, something that it seems like we can't now take for granted because we never know.
The heartbreak just at all the different locations that we've had our teams scattered upon. You have the school, you have all these different spots, the reunification spot, also where Chris Davis is at Vanderbilt when you're seeing for the first time. And we now know from a Vanderbilt spokesperson that these kids were dead as soon as they got there. And just how horrific that such an equipped medical team, there was nothing they could even do to save these little babies, unfortunately.
Let's hear from a neighbor.
Devastation. I was a physician at the Monroe Carroll Vanderbilt Hospital, Children's Hospital, for 22 years. And in all my years there, I've never dealt with something like this. I know Covenant School. I know people that attend Covenant School. I don't know any children. It's the least likely place, I think, in the city to have a mass shooting. I just have, Lord, have mercy on these families.
Again, we talk about Hunter, how residential this is, schools nearby, so many people, and they're seeing scenes like this, ambulances racing by to take them to VUMC, helicopters overhead, Metro police cars flying by, and Hannah McDonald is joining us back here on the desk as we give Vicki Yates a quick break. And Hannah, your husband's from here. He's a Nashvilleian. Your mother-in-law worked at this school.
And she had just taken a break. She was in the parking lot when she heard those gunshots.
Right. Decisions that you make, and they determine perhaps your tomorrow. She took a break. She went to the Shell right down the street, Hillsborough Road. I talked to her just a little while ago. We've talked a couple times today, and she said that she arrived back up on campus a little after 10:07. She said that's kind of the last time she saw on the clock, and there were two Metro Police vehicles in the parking lot, which is unusual. And she noticed the officers get out, open up the trunks, and start grabbing some of their gear that you only use in a scenario as serious as this.
You instantly know something is wrong.
Yeah, and she then understood what she was hearing were gunshots.
You touched on earlier in our coverage, but our viewers who just tuned in might have missed it. They went through active shooter training.
Isn't that something? Yes, and Hunter pointed out, this is a school that did all they could to protect the environment. And yes, they went through an active shooter training, a top-notch one that I happen to go to. It was a day off. I was interested in it, and my mother-in-law works at the school. So I felt very invited, and it was a powerful, difficult training. They saw video of the Las Vegas shooting. They talked about school shootings. They even looked at the layout of their particular school grounds and talked about vulnerabilities. And I know in the 13 or 14 months since, this was about January of last year, they have purchased walkie-talkies. They have upped their communication on their cell phone so that when anything happens that everyone needs to quickly get informed about, they know that certain tone perhaps that their phone makes, and they key into it. And locked doors. I mean, they were
so prepared.
That's something that they take seriously there. And we're hearing that the doors were locked, but this shooter had a plan.
It's those situations you can't plan for. And you talk about just the close-knit of this school. I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but 209 students. I mean, you spread that across preschool to 6th grade. Yeah. You kind of think probably it was one of those things, everybody knows everybody. And now there are all of these kids who are now without 3 of their classmates and 3 staff members.
Yes, and this school only was opened in 2001, so it's a fairly new school. Perhaps some of these kids had siblings there, but this isn't necessarily a place that has you know, a long legacy of parents and whatnot. So this is a young community that pours a lot of money into keeping this school strong and open, and admissions are something that they pay a lot of attention to. They want people to come and experience this school because it's a wonderful, friendly place.
And it's what parents do. I mean, that's what we do with our daughter. You drop her off and you say, honey, I love you so much. You have a great day. And you know they're in a great Christian learning environment and they're just wanting to go have fun. These are preschool. I mean, these are babies. Yeah. My daughter at 4 years old would be terrified to hear gunshots in her school and to have her teachers be as brave as they can in that moment. God, we know that these administrators have gone through everything, and you're prepared and you work with authorities what to do in this situation. And yet, you know, here we are, and we're processing this and learning what we can do as parents to say the right thing, to continue to pray, to know that we're doing everything we possibly can. And again, we'll just see, guys, the response from our legislators as well. Perhaps we know they're convening now and talking about what might be done in Washington, what might be done here locally, and even across the state of Tennessee.
We've heard from President Biden earlier. We want to go ahead and play some of that sound for you.
It's heartbreaking. A family's worst nightmare. We have to do more to stop gun violence. It's ripping our communities apart, ripping the soul of this nation, ripping at the very soul of the nation.
And that's the thing, too. We've heard from our local officials here who are calling for thoughts and prayers, and you also hear from our top official, President Biden, who is coming out saying something has to be done. I know that's a conversation we'll likely see here in the coming days of just what action can we see that is tangible, right, so something like this doesn't happen again.
He talked about reintroducing his assault weapons ban. We'll see where that goes in Washington, but we've heard from others today, some psychologists and counselors, we really have a 50-50 split in this country about what perhaps the right answer is, and we're doing some things. Perhaps we need to do other things better as well. Carrie Sharp is live just across the street from the church, which again, Carrie, to say that this is a crime scene at a church, at a preschool through 6th grade, it's incomprehensible.
It really is. And from the calls that I got today before coming out here and the text and from being out here, people just said, not Nashville, not here, right? This can't happen here. And now it has happened here. And this church behind me, Covenant Presbyterian Church, connected to the Covenant School, is indeed a crime scene. We are seeing officers still here at the entrance. They've opened this road. This is Burton Hills. But the officers are guarding the entrance to this church. It's a church. It has Easter signs up in front of it advertising their services that will happen in less than 2 weeks to celebrate Easter. And of course, today, this is about a terrible, terrible mass shooting that has happened at this school. 6 victims dead. Also the shooter dead after this encounter this morning with police. It has drawn, of course, media here. Everywhere you look, there are reporters here. And I want you to know at home, this is not what we want to be doing here today, but we want to be able to bring you accurate information about what is happening, what is true, how to talk to your families about this, what this means for our community, and where we can go from here. So that is why we are here today. But I guarantee you, those officers, these reporters out here, we would love to be doing something else today and not covering this tragedy here in our hometown. I think something that I've heard a lot today from just being out here and from people calling me and just saying, Lord, have mercy over this situation. And when we came here and we're trying to find a spot to park, we just very organically found 3 women in the parking lot. 2 knew each other, 1 did not, just strangers who found each other. And when they came here just to pray on their own, they connected together. Actually, there was a TikTok connection. One has a prayer ministry on TikTok, and they just joined together, and so they just felt each other's spirits, just needing to lift this area up in prayer as some way to unify, hopefully, our nation through this tragedy. And that's what they were praying for, that some good, some type of good could come out of everything awful that is happening today. And I just wanted you to hear it from them.
As soon as I heard, I was like, I have to get that. I have to get out there to pray because, like the officer said from the TBI, people like to judge us for praying, but no, this is exactly what we need in this time. It is prayer, that we need. That's what's going to change. That's what's going to shift. And we are certainly out here praying for every family that has been connected to this tragedy, for the families of every student that is represented in this school, all the staff, the administrators, and all of our first responders and police department. We are covering everyone in prayer because that's our first responsibility, is to pray.
Yeah, and when you can do nothing else, just pray. And that's what some people are just saying. I don't know what else I can do, but I can certainly lift up everybody involved in this. There are 3 families who will go to bed tonight without their children. There are 3 other families who will go to bed tonight without their loved one. And there is a family of the shooter in this who will go to bed tonight not knowing why this happened and be wrapped up in this horrible tragedy. But we are seeing glimpses of good already, just like those women praying. And then an Uber driver came up here and said, am I allowed to be here? I noticed this area is surging, and I just want to provide my services for free. And he was worried about being in trouble for being here. And I said, no, you're behind the police line. You can be here. He just had a good heart. He just wanted to help. And I think that's the situation that a lot of us are in right now. We don't know what to do, but we just want to do the next right thing and be here to help. We are continually hearing updates. The police have held 2 press conferences so far. We have kept you up to speed on all of those details, but their hands are full right now, not only monitoring this crime scene, protecting this area, keeping it cordoned off, but also going out into the community, finding out more about this woman who opened fire at the school, finding out more about these victims. We do know that everyone has been identified and that their families have been notified. We will stay right here and keep you up to date on all the latest information from right outside Covenant Presbyterian Church. Back to you guys.
You mentioned just even the school's motto out there, shepherding hearts, empowering minds, celebrating childhood. And that is what these educators were there to do.
That's exactly right. I mean, let's remember, these are preschoolers through 6th grade. These are children. They are learning the fundamentals of learning. This is a Monday. They're probably very excited to go back to school for the most part, see their friends, see their teachers, tell each other what they did over the weekend. It is a glorious day weather-wise, and now we have this juxtaposition of just this darkness that has set in over the Covenant School, and that's just what it feels like here. It doesn't make sense. We have this beautiful day. We have children, and we shouldn't be talking about 3 of them being shot and killed, and 3 adults who are there to help them in their education journey, and there to protect them and to shepherd them, just as the school's website says, being shot and killed. We shouldn't be talking about this, but we've done it. We've seen it across the nation, and now indeed it has come to Nashville.
We talk about the power of prayer and feeling like a tight-knit community right here in Nashville. We know many people are holding prayer vigils tonight. 2 of our great universities, Lipscomb and Belmont. If you would like to attend those and pray, we actually have an entire list that we're working on of gathering those as they come into our newsroom of where you'd like to go. I know Woodmont Christian, right across the street from Woodmont Baptist, where the reunification is happening. They're having one I just saw at 6 o'clock tonight. But guys, here are the others: 4 p.m. at Belmont, 7 at Lipscomb, 6:30 at Belmont United Methodist, and then 10:15 tonight at Tennessee Tech as well. If you just want to go and pray for your friends, your neighbors, loved ones who might have been impacted by this, Hannah, because Lord knows we need each other right now.
When I talked to my mother-in-law, Diana, who works the front desk at this school, she said to me about an hour ago, I want you to tell everyone we do want your prayers. She said that's all anyone can really give at the moment, and they're powerful. Just please do whatever makes you comfortable. If it's going to one of these gatherings, if it's just at home to yourself, that's fine too. These families are going to not be the same ever again. And I mean, Carrie, she said it so well. What a beautiful day it is. These kids love going to school. Many elementary school age kids do. I went to the graduation last year, the 6th grade graduation, and there were just tears in the pews from all of the teachers because they've watched a lot of these kids rise up in the ranks. This is such a small school. So truly, the 5th grade teachers, they watch those 6th grade students graduate with such pride. So this school is very rattled.
Yeah, we know about 209 students there, about 40 staff members. So again, it's one of those schools that everybody kind of knows everybody in the community. Like you said, everybody's got a little bit of a connection here. And just all of these realities that are now changing, right? She mentioned it's a Monday. Everyone was excited to go back to school and tell each other what they did. And now it's this reality of 3 of their classmates are gone.
Right, and possibly a custodian who doesn't love their, person who keeps their building intact and beautiful. And I know a couple of the custodians on the staff, including the person who we think may have been killed, and they're funny. They are good people.
And we know there are a lot of you who are watching and getting information online, on Twitter, and you might be wondering, why isn't News Channel 5 reporting this? Admittedly, we have things we know that we have not confirmed or are working to confirm, and we're still waiting for more information about this 28-year-old female shooter that Chief Drake did say perhaps was indeed one time a student at the Covenant School. Olivia Michael has been there at Woodmont Baptist Church off Hillsborough for us at that reunification process, which we heard earlier, Olivia, is kind of a painstaking process to reunite these parents with their precious children. So where do things stand there now, and what are some of the emotions that you're seeing of people walking out?
Sure. Well, just to paint a picture for you, Ben, families have been trickling out with their students. I did catch a glimpse of presumably a father holding his daughter, couldn't have been older than 6 or 7, carrying her both arms wrapped around her tight, holding her head to his chest. And you can imagine that feeling these parents are experiencing, holding their little ones, knowing this tragedy happened at their school, and they finally have them safe in their arms. The process is still ongoing. It's a long process. We know that on an average day, there's about 209 students at this school. So when you think about all the family members, the parents that are coming, our Ben Hall told us earlier, it seems to be groups of 3 that they are dismissing, and it's a very deliberate process. We're joined now by parents, actually, Carol and Jimmy Smith, who have a very close relationship with the school. Your son is a recent graduate, right?
Yes, he graduated, I guess 6 years ago. So.
And tell me what brought you guys here today.
Well, actually, it was him. He had heard that some of his students that he actually graduated with were here. Some of them have siblings who are at the school, and so he just texted us and said, I need to be there. He said, it's my family, and I need to be there. So we're in debt to the teachers here who helped to raise him in the Lord, and that means something to him, and he wanted to be here to support them.
Talk to me a little bit about the school community and why you chose to send your son there.
When we toured the Covenant School, we were just struck with the joy that radiated just in everything that we saw. And that held true the entire time that our son was there. They start out with chapel every morning with the entire community. And the kids and the faculty and everybody are together for the first 20 minutes of school. And that just sets the tone for the entire day. And they sing, this is the Lord that the day has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. And that's how they started every day.
What's going through your head right now?
There's just so many thoughts and mixed emotions. I'm just so sad and heartbroken for the families that are impacted by this and their children. And so, we know there's a hard road ahead for a lot of people. And certainly they're in our prayers. So.
Is your son in the church now?
Yes, he's currently in there. He's, it's not about us. We know that he wanted to be here, so we're here to support him and see if we could see anybody coming out that we knew, and we were able to do that, and just to give them a hug and let them know that we're supporting them. We'll do anything that we can to help them, and so he wanted to do the same inside.
Who have you seen that you know? Is it staff, other parents?
Other parents, yes.
And how are they doing?
They're doing okay, as well as can be expected.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Those are just some of the parents that are members of this school community, and everyone we've spoken to says it's a close school community, as you just heard. And really a lot of parents coming by that have children in other private schools but say, we played games at the school. We had basketball tournaments, soccer tournaments. Our kids have played each other, and even though they go to different schools, we're going to be there for them because we're all one family. So going back to the reunification process, again, we are here at Woodmont Baptist Church. Process still ongoing, could be another few hours, but like we've been telling folks all day, if you don't have a reason to be here, please don't. It's about to be rush hour, 3:30. We know that traffic is going to pick up as folks are returning to their homes in the area, so we want to make this process as smooth as possible for the families. Back to you guys.
You talk about such a long process, Olivia. How is the